Data is the new oil, right? We hear that phrase all the time. But what if I told you that in Africa, it's not just the new oil, it's also the new gold? And maybe the most pressing question isn't if it will be mined, but who gets to mine it? And frankly, for whose benefit? Today, we're plunging into a story that's really shaping the digital future of an entire continent. And honestly, it has implications for all of us. Picture this, a kind of David versus Goliath battle playing out right now. On one side, you've got Google DeepMind, the Alphabet-owned AI powerhouse, billions of dollars, global ambitions, the whole 9 yards. And on the other, these amazing grassroots challengers, think Data Science Nigeria, DSN, and Lanfrica, homegrown innovations born right out of the tech hubs in Lagos, Ibadan, Abuja. Now, this isn't a fight over physical resources like we usually think of. No, the real battlefield here is the training data, the stuff that's going to sculpt tomorrow's artificial intelligence. We're talking the future of language, how we do business, even culture itself. So, our mission today, let's cut through the noise. Let's extract the most important insights from the sources we have.
We need to understand the global context driving this scramble, and ultimately see what it all means for innovation, for leadership, and yet for winning strategies in this digital age.
What's really striking here is just how quickly the global stakes around AI have shot up. And suddenly Africa, which, let's face it, was often sort of sidelined in the early digital waves, it's now right at the epicenter of this critical fight for, well, digital sovereignty. If you look back at that really intense period, say 2020 to 2025, the world wasn't just waking up to AI. It was consumed by an all-out AI gold rush. And that frantic global scramble really sets the stage for what's happening now for Africa's emergence as a key player.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's not just an African story, is it? It's this global phenomenon that shows perfectly how fast the tech landscape can just pivot. So let's zoom out for a second. How did the world even get here? Well, over in the US, we saw OpenAI just unleash ChatGPT. And boom, fastest growing consumer app in history. Almost overnight, can you believe that? Millions of people just casually chatting with machines like it was nothing. And Microsoft's CEO, Satya Nadella, talk about strategic foresight. He saw this wasn't just a new feature. They poured billions into OpenAI, started embedding GPT-4, GPT-5 right into Office, Bing, Azure.
Into everything, basically. They didn't mess around.
Exactly. It wasn't just an update. It was this incredibly audacious, maybe trillion-dollar gamble to take on Google's dominance in search. Nadella famously said something like, if we control distribution office teams, Outlook, we control adoption. AI isn't a feature, it's the platform. That just signaled a whole new era, didn't it? Where these giants weren't just building tools anymore, they were building entire digital realities.
That's spot on. And Microsoft's really aggressive move, it didn't just nibble at Google's market share. It forced a fundamental rethink inside DeepMind. Google's own chatbot, Bard, which later became Gemini, suddenly found itself playing catch-up, a position Google wasn't used to. And DeepMind, Google's AI crown jewel, led by Demis Hassabis, they'd been known for this quiet, almost academic, groundbreaking research, Go, protein folding, that kind of thing. But suddenly, bang, they're pushed from the lab right onto the front line of this brutal trillion-dollar market war.
Wow, so a massive internal shift for them.
Huge. Meanwhile, you look across the Atlantic, and Europe's reaction was, well, different. Less market aggression, more caution. Lawmakers there were getting really concerned about AI's potential downsides, destabilizing democracy, spreading misinformation, which led to the EU's AI Act in 2024, definitely the world's most ambitious attempt to regulate algorithms so far. And that created this interesting dynamic, what some called a curse and a moat for European CEOs.
A curse and a moat. Explain that a bit.
Well, the curse is maybe slower innovation, right? More hoops to jump through compared to, say, the US or China. But the moat aspect is the idea that this focus on regulation could build higher trust, stronger ethical standards in the long run.
Ah, okay. So it potentially creates a barrier to entry for less scrupulous players, maybe.
Potentially, yes. Or at least carves out a niche based on trustworthiness. It's a different strategy, and certainly contrasts with the nationalist urgency we saw heating up elsewhere, particularly in Asia.
Right. Speaking of that nationalist urgency, Asia went a completely different way. In China, you had the big tech players, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, plus the government itself, just pouring resources into what they explicitly called sovereign AI. And just to be clear, this wasn't just about building AI, was it? It was about controlling the whole stack.
Exactly. Developing and controlling the technologies entirely within their own borders. Their data, their algorithms, their infrastructure. Zero foreign influence, ideally. And those Western chip sanctions. If anything, they just seemed to harden that resolve. The message became almost defiant. Chinese data, Chinese algorithms, Chinese future?
Wow. And India was feeling that pressure too.
Very much so. Prime Minister Narendra Modi declared data a strategic national asset. A huge push for Indic language models, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, is framed very clearly as a tool for national sovereignty, but also for cultural preservation, making sure AI spoke their languages.
Okay, so US, Europe, China, India,
Yeah.
and then South America, the conversation shifted again there.
It did. It became much more focused on data dignity. That was the term popping up. Countries like Brazil, Chile, Argentina started debating not just control, but how to protect citizens' digital rights. And you had indigenous activists raising really important warnings about their languages, their sacred stories being scraped and commercialized by algorithms that just don't get the cultural context.
That's a crucial point. These aren't just data points. They're cultural heritage.
Precisely. And what this whole global picture shows, really, is this universal awakening. Every major power, every nation realizing, control the data, control the future. It's not just economics anymore. It's culture, security, digital self-determination, the works. And this global scramble, this deep understanding of data's strategic value, that's the backdrop for when this gold rush finally slams into Africa.
So Africa, for decades, kind of an afterthought in the digital story, like you said. What happens when this high-stakes AI game finally lands on its shores? I mean, for so long, African voices were just missing from the big AI training data sets. I remember joking back in maybe 2023, if you asked ChatGPT about a complex Igbo proverb, you'd probably get digital static.
Or very polite, but ultimately clueless. Response.
Yeah.
Ask for Wolof poetry. Forget it.
Right. It really hammered home how much language and culture are tied together and how much was being left out. It wasn't just a tech gap. It felt like a profound cultural silence in the digital world. But then something started shifting, didn't it? African researchers, innovators, leaders,
Yeah,
they started asking these fundamental questions.
they really did. Questions like, why should Silicon Valley decide how our kids talk to machines? Why should AI understand Shakespeare, perfectly, but struggle with Shona or Yoruba or American? It felt wrong.
It was wrong. And that feeling sparked some truly heroic local efforts. Tell us about Data Science Nigeria, DSN, founded back in 2016.
Yeah, by a real visionary, Bayo Adekambi. His goal was audacious, almost unbelievable at the time: train 1 million African youths in AI. And by 2025, they'd already put thousands of graduates through their programs. These weren't just coding boot camps. They were building local data sets, nurturing local startups, cultivating local dreams proactively, not waiting around.
Incredible initiative, real self-reliance.
Absolutely. It was about building capacity, asserting digital agency. And then you have Lamfricare, founded by researchers who saw the urgent need to catalog and preserve African languages online before they potentially vanish digitally. Think of it like a vital library, an index of linguistic resources.
Right.
But it has this dual mission.
Protective and technological.
Exactly. Shielding these languages from digital extinction while also providing the raw materials needed to build a uniquely African AI. And here's something global players often miss. It's not just that these local champions exist, it's how they operate. Their distributed, community-driven approach to data collection might actually be more robust, more ethically sound for the African context than any big top-down effort Google could mount. That's a potentially huge, often unseen competitive advantage.
Those founders, those researchers,
Yeah.
they really are heroes in this story, facing what seemed like impossible odds. And they're basically saying for the first time, loud and clear, hold on. Our data isn't just free for the taking.
Precisely. It's ours. It has value, and we will decide how it's used.
That assertion, that stand, it must have sent ripples through the big tech boardrooms.
Oh, absolutely. It raises that crucial question for any strategist, any global leader looking at this space. What do you do when local pioneers step up with such clear missions, such proven capability? They're not just building apps, they're asserting a fundamental right to self-determination online. They're saying, look, our data isn't just a commodity you can extract like oil. It's part of our identity. It has immense value, and we're controlling its destiny. It really underscores the resilience, the strategic thinking within these homegrown African initiatives.
Okay, so given this new reality, this pushback, how does a global giant like Google DeepMind react? They have these universal ambitions for their AI, right?
Yeah.
How do they navigate this increasingly contested space in Africa? It's fascinating to imagine those internal debates happening in their London offices. You mentioned Demis Hassabis, the CEO. What was the thinking there?
Well, reports suggest the conversation went something like this. Africa has 1.4 billion people. The linguistic diversity is just staggering. Hassabis reportedly said, if our models are to be truly universal, we simply can't ignore it. Makes sense. And for the broader Alphabet leadership, Africa clearly looked like a dual opportunity. Untapped training data, sure, but also a huge emerging consumer market for AI products down the line.
So the big strategic fork in the road for them, and really for any global player looking at Africa, became,
Yeah, it boiled down to, do we genuinely collaborate with these local players who are already doing amazing work,
Yeah.
or do we just extract the data, the old model? Raw materials out, value processed elsewhere. And for many African academics, leaders, innovators, there was this palpable fear of déjà vu, a kind of digital colonialism.
that fear that history would repeat itself, just with data instead of diamonds or rubber.
Exactly. That African data would be shipped out, enriching foreign companies, with very little benefit flowing back to the continent itself, a legitimate concern.
But Africa wasn't just sitting back worrying, was it? There was this surge of local activity, this fight back.
Oh, definitely not passive. You saw it everywhere. DSN hackathons with young coders intensely focused on training models, specifically on Yoruba text, making sure their language had proper digital footing. Over in Nairobi, developers were busy testing Swahili voice assistants, tailoring the tech to actual local needs and nuances. And Lanfrica was just relentlessly expanding its index, cataloging thousands of datasets across Hausa, Twi, Amharic, meticulously building that foundation.
It's that dedication. I remember hearing one of the Lamfreca founders quoted saying something really powerful.
Yeah, something like, if we don't document our own languages, who will? We can't wait for Silicon Valley to care. We must build for ourselves. You can just feel the determination there.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just pride, right? This was hard economics too.
Totally. Because think about it. Whoever controls the African training data, they ultimately control the future African AI markets. We're talking automated call centers tuned to local accents, health apps that understand local contexts, e-commerce platforms designed for African consumers. It's massive potential value.
And the investors started noticing this shift.
They did. Venture capital, which had maybe been hesitant before, started trickling, then flowing into places like Lagos, Accra, Nairobi. You saw startups popping up pitching their own African GPTs, models built on local data for local needs. Governments woke up too. Nigeria started drafting actual AI strategies. Kenya launched task forces. South Africa began debating regulations specific to AI and data.
So it moved incredibly fast from being off the map to being this highly contested space.
Incredibly fast. The idea of Africa as just some kind of data vacuum, that perception shifted decisively. It became a strategically vital arena. And the big mistake, the absolute blunder for any global player would be to underestimate the intelligence, the drive, the deep cultural connection fueling these local initiatives. The lesson for any aspiring business strategist looking at this is crystal clear. Ignore local context, ignore local champions, ignore local values. You do that at your peril. Real success, sustainable success in this landscape. It demands genuine partnership, not just extraction.
Which brings us to the clash.
Yeah.
By 2025, you couldn't ignore it. This wasn't some polite academic discussion anymore. It felt like a full-blown battle, really. A battle for sovereignty, for identity.
It absolutely did. You had these starkly contrasting viewpoints. The global AI giants often framed it as, we're just helping Africa leapfrog, bringing the future faster.
While the local players were pushing back hard, saying things like, no, you're strip mining our culture, our heritage, our identity. Strong words.
Incredibly strong. And the stakes felt existential. There was that quote from an African policymaker, wasn't there? Really sticks with you.
The one about data not being oil.
Yeah?
Data is not oil, it is identity. And identity cannot be outsourced. Powerful stuff.
Hits hard, doesn't it? Because it framed the issue perfectly. For Africa's billion-plus people, this wasn't just about getting a new gadget or app. It was about whether the machines of tomorrow would actually speak to them, understand their world, their nuances, or whether those machines would essentially speak for them, potentially imposing outside views, outside biases, outside priorities.
So the global AI race was already reshaping power dynamics everywhere.
Well, and in Africa, it was hitting even deeper. It was fundamentally reshaping the very meaning of sovereignty in the digital age.
Okay, let's try and wrap our heads around this. We've seen the global gold rush, the awakening in Africa, the clash between giants and local heroes.
Yeah.
It really boils down to this core tension, doesn't it? The gold rush for data is definitely on. But this gold,
Yeah.
it's people's voices, their stories, their cultural rhythms.
Exactly. It's deeply personal, deeply cultural.
So the urgent question for Africa remains. Will its data be extracted, shipped out like those resources of old? Or will it be harnessed right there for homegrown prosperity, for African solutions? And for Google, for the other giants, the choice seems pretty stark too. Collaborate genuinely or risk being labeled the new colonizers of the digital age.
A label no global brand wants.
And for DSN, for Lanfrica, for all those local innovators, the mission is monumental, isn't it? Prove that world-class AI can be built by Africans for Africans, ensure that digital gold stays, well, unrefined maybe, but definitely on the continent, benefiting its people.
You know, this whole situation forces us all to ask a really tough question. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. In this age where data is becoming identity and tech is moving at lightning speed, how do we make sure progress doesn't bulldoze cultural and linguistic diversity? What other strategies, maybe ones we haven't even touched on, could ensure real equitable collaboration, not just between giants and startups, but between technology and humanity itself? Something for us all to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Well, that's our deep dive for today. We really hope this exploration gave you a clearer, maybe even a more nuanced picture of the incredible stakes, the inspiring stories, and the sharp strategies playing out in Africa's AI landscape. There's always so much more to learn, of course, and we genuinely encourage you, if this sparked your interest, dig deeper. Look into the amazing work being done by Data Science Nigeria, by Lanfrica, and others like them. And just our usual disclaimer, as with any story unfolding in real time, we can't possibly know every single detail or private motivation. Our deep dive today is based on publicly available information, news reports, official statements, public records. We always aim to give you the most informed, insightful perspective we possibly can.
You've been listening to Empire and Legacy, African Business Chronicles. Our hosts are Zuri Mwangi and Kwame Adeyemi. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, X, Instagram, and YouTube. All links are in the show notes. Empire and Legacy is essential listening for business professionals and leaders. Be sure to subscribe to be the first to know when new episodes are released. Until next time.